Packers training camp is underway in Green Bay, and nobody is bringing you closer to the action than us.
We are enjoying some special teams work, some individual drills right now for the offense and defensive linemen, DBs in front of us.
All of the storylines, all of the emerging stars, and all of the big plays out of camp. Analyzed by two guys who know Packers football inside and out.
Quarterbacks at this time of year, veteran quarterbacks especially, they'll be trying throws here that they wouldn't try elsewhere.
Training camp coverage on Fox Sports Radio Wisconsin is presented by Potawatomi Sportsbook. Now, live from the perch above Ray Nitschke Field, with the voice of the Packers, Wayne Larrivee.
And the Packers deliver the dagger.
Here is Packers OT host, Bill Schmid.
Welcome in, Packers fans across the country, coast to coast, as we broadcast day 2 of Packers camp. It is Training Camp Live, presented by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. I'm Bill Schmid, alongside the voice of the Green Bay Packers, Wayne Larrivee. And Wayne, day 1, a short in and out. Day 2, once again, not in pads, but now you get the recap of how day 1 went, most importantly, in a different direction than usually you do in training camp. You don't normally get healthier. We get Keyshawn Nixon back today on the practice field, and we get into day 2 of the proceedings here at Ray Nitschke.
And, a couple guys coming back, which is good to see. And Matt LaFleur mentioned earlier this morning in his presser that, they a lot of this at this time of year, an abundance of caution on these guys. If they tweak something, they feel something, come off the practice field, let's get it checked out and then proceed from there. But, again, the Packers yesterday had 10 guys out, and today not quite as many as that. But still, the one concerning issue would be Luke Musgrave, the backup tight end. Former second-round draft choice, that neck injury. You get, just reading between the lines, a feeling that there's some concern here about that.
And it being a little bit of a re-aggravation, I know Matt mentioned, of a situation that happened earlier on for him. That's anything in the head and neck area obviously is going to be of concern, but there's some reason to believe that he was going to would factor in on the pass catching variety here, Wayne. But that's a former second-round pick, and if you're talking about the head and neck, there's a long haul that might come back, and that's a position where, you and I, when we were doing the draft show, thought maybe they would attack that spot, and instead we're unable to do that. Maybe that's a waiver wire situation that you have to look at here into camp if that continues to go on.
And I feel for Luke because, Billy, he's had nothing but injury issues in his short time here in Green Bay, and he's a good kid. He's a very good talent. You can tell when we talk to Matt LaFleur, you can tell he would just love to be able to unleash some things with that kid downfield. Now, are they going to put him in line and make him block? No, he's a guy who can stretch the seam, get open over the middle, that kind of thing. We've seen flashes of that, but unfortunately injuries have interrupted his career time and time again. And you just feel bad for the kid because he's doing everything he can to get on the field and stay on the field.
No doubt, and came in from Oregon State with a little bit of a foot thing, if I remember correctly. And it classic tale as old as time. It's harder to get healthier in the NFL, but this one a different situation, and hopefully better news there to come, and some better news from Keyshawn Nixon that he's back here at practice. Felt a little something grab with the hammy. He's out with the ones most likely once we get to a team drill. But Brandon Cisse was one of the talks of the day, Wayne. It's hard to get the full grasp on who everybody on the other side, the reporters and such, are seeing, but felt like number 2 really jumped off the page to a lot yesterday.
Yeah, he did. He had a nice practice, and I know that Matt LaFleur is excited about the talent he can bring to this football team at the cornerback spot. And I think that Goody, and again, Damani Jackson's another guy I'm anxious to see, the cornerback out of Alabama. We did not see him in the off-season workouts, the OTAs, and the minicamp. He was nursing an injury. He's back on the field now. I looked out there, said, who's number 20? Oh, wait a minute. It's Damani Jackson. I hadn't seen him for a while. But that's another kid in the draft. I think they've got more competition at the cornerback spot. Will that make them better? Well, usually competition does make you better. But we'll see. But Cisse was one guy. Keon Drones,
yes,
the quarterback, made a nice throw to Isaiah Nayer. Those are two guys that, folks, if you're listening, and maybe you haven't heard about those two guys, but, Kyron Drones is a quarterback that they're intrigued with, okay? And you could get that sense in the OTAs and minicamp. They really like his skill set. Very athletic guy. Has a big arm. He can make the throws. but he's also very athletic. However, he is very raw, and he's a developmental project. And where does he fit in the quarterback tree and that type of thing? Well, only time will tell. But he made a nice play yesterday. And then my guy, Marlon Jones, right in front of us,
Incredible.
right here on the pylon, picks away a red zone pass and would have taken it all the way. Great stories we mentioned out of Vanderbilt. He's a guy to kind of keep an eye on at cornerback, a rookie free agent.
A bit of a miracle, man. If you look at it, stage 3 lymphoma as a junior in college, and to be able to do that, you got to make a play a day, it seems like, and it's difficult to just put that out in front. And I know the coaches and player personnel people would say it as such, but Wayne, it's difficult when it is a daunting task. You see it as a young player and an undrafted rookie like Marlon or Drones, as you mentioned, but like those are guys who you stack days continually, and then you get a little bit more buzz. Drones is somebody that's going to get a lot of opportunities in the games, I would assume, to probably lock up one of those practice squad spots to fully develop, because the Packers do that.
He and Kyle McCord will get a lot of time at quarterback in these preseason games. I'm sure they'll get Tyrod Taylor out there to work a little bit. We'll probably see. I think we're going to see starters play a couple of series this preseason, and then they'll use that week against Arizona to really try to sharpen things up in practice, that one day of joint practices they have with the Cardinals, who come in here for the last week of the preseason. But I think, probably week 2, I would imagine you'll probably maybe week 1. I don't know. We'll have to see how Matt wants to play it, but they'll get their starters some reps. And Billy, how important is it defensively with the new system and all that for them to get a few reps in there in a game situation, not a controlled practice, but a game situation?
It's got to be pretty paramount. Even just the communication style, you would think, needs to get into a game. And that's a tough balancing act, Wayne, because we're two weeks from today. The Packers will be in Pittsburgh at formerly Heinz Field playing a preseason game. That also then is a month before you play a regular season game. So as much as you want to protect and you don't want to put some guys out there too late in the process, you also don't want it to be too early, and then you're out there for a series and then you go and wait a month. That's a tough balancing act. That's why I think Denver's probably the best one, and Arizona is timed very well in the joint practice. But from the communications standpoint, especially on the road, I think it's pretty important that you get a couple of reps in.
And I was a little surprised, to be honest with you, Billy. I thought going to Denver, we'd do another, scrimmage with them in practice. But Matt LaFleur mentioned last year when we went out there that, okay, so you did the practice against the Broncos on Thursday. You had all day Friday. Okay, that's fine. But then the game wasn't until like 8 o'clock at night on Saturday. And it was just a long time. A lot of downtime on the road, a long time, and it wasn't very productive in that regard. So he decided not to do anything on the road. But his brother, with newly minted head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, Mike, will bring the Cardinals in here, and that'll be a real family affair, I'm sure, for the LaFleurs.
And get to face the former Cardinals coach as well.
Yeah, that's right, Jonathan.
Fun,
there's a lot of intrigue that week. I'm looking forward to it already.
Already, no kidding. This is the mode of camp. You get in, you hurry up, and then you wait for the next process. We can't wait for pads to get popping, because this offensive line drills that are happening off to our right will have a little bit more gusto to it. Yesterday, the one dropout throughout the day, the tough news was seeing Jagger Burton, the 5th-round pick, exit earlier on, walk off with the trainers, and seemingly he's not here today, out with a little bit of a hammy deal, but he's over there talking to the rehab group right now.
Yeah, he's out here, helmet. But no helmet. Yeah, and that's the key. No helmet. So he's not going to be doing any drills. But I would imagine it's a minor thing, in that he's talking to General Manager Brian Gutekunst right now, and I would imagine it's minor, and I would think he'd be out here probably next week or at the latest.
Now, Wayne, my man was talking to the GM, and now he's a big cat. Now he's going to walk over towards us, and I'll maybe get a little bit quieter here as Jagger Burton walks over. But he's got the play sheet. He's got the towel. He was wiping that sweat off the brow a little bit. Is that just because it's hot, or because he's also talking to the boss there in the middle of it? You got to wonder. That probably brings a little bit more sweat for the 5th-round pick as you get a conversation with the boss there at midfield. Oh, man. Now we get into a quick team.
I saw my boss here, Craig Schilbauer, earlier this morning, and I'm sweating bullets right now.
That's fair.
Well, really?
I was going to say,
seriously,
that ends up being radio. It was good to see. It's good to see the boss over here drop by the perch here at Ray Nitschke Field for day 2 of Packers training camp. Our coverage presented by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Bet big, bet bold, bet above the rest. There's nothing you can bet on in training camp practices. We might get there with joint practices at some particular point in time. But Wayne, I had a friendly wager with a cohort of myself who, how many times would we talk about Sky Moore throughout the process? Well, I would have lost if I had the over yesterday, because I don't know that we really mentioned him too much outside of a little bit of what he could do in the return game. On the offensive side might be a little interesting for number 23, because you see him continuing to work in that wide receiver room. Bo Melton back into the wide receiver room as well. And there is a little bit of a run and a race for who's going to grab one of those 5th or 6th spots there in that
exactly room. And you mentioned Bo Melton, certainly Sky Moore, both guys now, they're kind of veterans, you know what I mean, in a backup capacity. But Sky Moore's here because of his return ability. Mm-hmm. That's why he's here. However, Matt LaFleur this morning said, I think there's more to get on the offensive side of the football as well with Sky Moore. So it'll be interesting to see how much. I would imagine he and Bo Melton will play quite a bit in the preseason, I would guess, to sort out that receiver room, that receiver component to whatever they do.
Because Sky Moore, I mean, you're talking about a former 2nd-round pick and somebody that was pretty highly lauded when he was coming out of Western Michigan. I really liked him in the draft process. And some familiarity with a system similar, because he was just in San Francisco a year ago. Didn't do a ton of offense, if I'm not mistaken, a year ago. But I do think that could be a club in his bag, Wayne, that helps you out maybe a little bit more than they would have anticipated.
Yeah, I think so too. And, again, I'm not quite sure. The numbers with Bo Melton as a receiver go up and down throughout his last 3 years. I don't know why, because the times I've seen him, he can make a play. And he can make a play as a receiver. And I'll never forget that game he had at the end of the season like 3 years ago at Minnesota, where he produced the only 100-yard receiving game of that season for the Packers.
One of the best trivia questions you could get.
Yeah,
and on a New Year's Eve when they toasted and celebrated in style against the Vikings.
Billy and I are all in the business of giving, and I'm going to give you guys out there. You can make a lot of money with your
investments. Let's go
investments, or with your group at the bar with trivia. You can, who has the longest field goal in the history of the Green Bay Packers? And you know what? There is almost nobody who doesn't go to Google. Now, the prerequisite is do not allow the person you're dealing with go to Google.
Yeah, and then let
them see if they know.
Let them say Dave Rayner. Son of a gun. No, okay.
Ryan Longwell had to be. Oh, it must be Mason Crosby. Come on.
It has to be.
No, Lucas Havrasek, 61 yards at Arizona a year ago.
See, and now you're welcome. That's what you get for
you will make a lot of money on that, okay? So if you're up there in Door County, one of those little establishments, do a little trivia thing. Put a little, skin on the table there and say, who do you think?
Now, that's what I like to hear, Wayne, because this is the middle of, we're 7 weeks away from the Packers playing a game. We're grabbing some other things that people are going to be able to use. Not only just Evan Williams looks good without pads on, some information that can help you at the card table or at the Door County establishment. I like a lot. There's a lot of time to be parsing through a lot of different things, but the fun factor of camp is something that I never. It doesn't get past me. The enjoyment of this, Wayne. I mean, there is not a spot available in the stands or on the rails.
Yeah.
Packers fans are in mid-season form.
They're out here big time this first week of training camp. And again, we're not even in pads yet. So that's coming up next week, and that's when it really gets underway. And then family night scrimmage caps off the first full week of training camp, which would be Friday night, a week from Friday night, family night. And that's not a scrimmage, it's a practice. But nonetheless, it kind of culminates that early part of training camp. And then you get into the preseason phase of training camp, preseason games. There'll be 3 weeks of that.
That's a great point. It is kind of that's a benchmark, getting there to family night as camp almost closes. Now you get into a game week and figuring out how guys are going to be able to process through that. And I said it just a minute ago, but it is wild to think 2 weeks from tonight, you're going to play a preseason game. And you only played 3 of them. There was a time and place when this league had almost 2 months of training camp, and you played 4 to 6 preseason games to get ready. And instead we're truncating it. It's a difficult balance because you have to be able to get legitimate work in, especially with the offensive line, for some real cohesion, Wayne, before you play a game. And instead, they just don't have a ton of opportunities. It's pretty paramount to be able to take advantage of them whenever you get some of these guys.
And no question about it. And I think, there are some teams whose school of thought is never to play a starter during a preseason game, and that's the Rams, and they're very successful at what they've done. We've seen that here in Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers was not
a
big fan of playing in preseason games with his offensive line, but nonetheless, I think the more I've seen it evolve with this team, and again, Matt has had a very young team each of the last 3 years. And so the feeling has been, we need to get these guys on the field in a uncontrolled situation where practice is always going to be, even joint practices are controlled, as you well know, Bill. And what they want to do, I think, with some of these younger players, get them out there in a real game situation where we're not controlling the shots. We're not calling, you've got to read and react.
And there's only so much that live bullets throw a totally different wrinkle on the field, and we'll see some more of those. We'll see a couple of team periods starting up here momentarily as they wrap up some special teams drills. Yeah. Wayne Larrivee, voice of the Green Bay Packers, to my right. I'm Billy Schmid. It is Training Camp Live, presented by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. We'll take a quick time out as we begin here, day number 2, potentially a little longer excursion on the field for the Packers than yesterday. They were done just after 12 o'clock yesterday. I assume it'll be a tick longer here today as we continue the acclimation period and phase of training camp. Day number 2. You got us on all of our Fox Sports Radio Wisconsin YouTube pages, 1070 a.m. in Madison and 920 a.m. in Milwaukee. It's Training Camp Live.
at Packers training camp in Green Bay, bringing you closer to the action than anyone else.
I think this year he's looked very good at camp.
Camp coverage on Fox Sports Radio Wisconsin is presented by Potawatomi Sportsbook. Now back to Training Camp Live with the voice of the Packers, Wayne Larrivee. Here is Packers OT host, Bill Schmid.
It is day 2 of Packers training camp live from Ray Nitschke Field, presented by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Bet big, bet bold, and bet above the rest. It is Bill Schmid alongside the voice of the Green Bay Packers, Wayne Larrivee. Potawatomi Sportsbook, the place to go if you're going to catch some baseball this weekend, some late-night West Coast baseball as the Brewers go out to Anaheim. Go and watch it at the Potawatomi Sportsbook. When they return, make sure you're taking the Potawatomi Game Day Shuttle to and from Brewers games back every single home game. Just make a same-day sportsbook bet, sportsbook dining purchase, get a wristband, and get a ride to and from the game. And soon enough, NFL games are going to be live in the sportsbook. And no better way to take in an NFL Sunday than inside the sportsbook, having some very, very nice ice-cold refreshments, some beautiful food, and hopefully winning some plays. Making some plays out here are the first-team offensive players for the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love coordinating it, and Marshawn Lloyd behind him. Wayne, a lot of reps for number 32, and exciting just to see him back here day after day. We talk about it, and some people would make it seem like it's a mockery. I think it's just a fact of the matter. It is good to see him be able to continue to be on the field. Now, once we get in pads and be able to withstand that, it seems like the only real question is Marshawn Lloyd runs off to the right side.
And it's a question. It's a legitimate question because he's had his injury issues, but hopefully he's beyond that, and hopefully he can have a great season for the Packers. I know they're really excited, Billy, about, as we've talked many times here, the dimension of explosiveness he can bring to the running back position. And if he's that effective, he can give Josh Jacobs a certain amount of time. He can give him some rest during games. He can certainly, I think Josh Jacobs is actually at a point in his career where he might be more effective with less carries and less touches than with more.
I agree with you. And Wayne, you've seen it with some of the best backs in football. There's a every other year component to that position, right? Where you can be really, really good one year. And even Saquon Barkley this past year, his numbers were far and away down from the almost MVP year he had a year ago. Some of it can be understandable. Some of it's just workload. And you work that much and carry the ball that much, it's hard to be able to bounce back. I'm fascinated to see how much Pierre Strong, who also was in the mix and just had a catch right there. You've mentioned him a couple of different times. How much the work in the preseason leads to some potential reps that we get for Strong during the regular season. And I think he's making this team.
I do too. I've liked him. He looked good in the OTAs and minicamp to me. Of course, you've got to wait for the pads, as we keep saying, to come on here in training camp. But then I think he's going to get a lot of run of the preseason games because they really want to know what they have in this kid. He's got some experience. He's been with the New England Patriots. This is a kid who I think can really feel a key role in this running back core.
Now, as we're watching some run period here for the Packers as they move the football down the field a little bit in this team portion of camp. Number 64, Jonathan Ford. Now, a different number in his first stint with the Packers. They're kind of in need, Wayne, of a run-stuffing defensive tackle. And last year they bring in Nazir Stackhouse as well as Warren Brinson, both from Georgia. Stackhouse in camp looked really, really good. I think once we got to some games, some of it was left something to be desired. Ford's an interesting case because it feels like it would be one of those two for that first and second down run-stuffing position.
Yeah, I think so too, Billy. Jordan Riley, who's a nose tackle type, 6'5", 338, is injured and on the he's on the injured list right now. Achilles last December. He's still coming back from that. He's probably not going to figure in. Devontae White, Javon Hargrave are two guys who can kind of push the pocket from within in terms of a pass rush, and they can certainly do a job against the run as well. Chris McClellan is more along the line of Wyatt and Hargrave. Stackhouse is a solid nose, and Ford is a guy on the nose, Bill, that you're going to see a lot of in preseason games because, again, there's a guy that for one last time they want to get a look at it. Can he be a guy who can play a role in the rotation up front to stop the run on early downs?
And now we get Chris McClellan in that interior on the defensive line, getting a play call in from Zaire Franklin, who yesterday made one of the bigger plays and one of the more noteworthy ones. The aforementioned Marshawn Lloyd caught a ball out of the backfield, and Franklin just clean stripped him and was able to force a turnover. They just didn't have enough turnovers a year ago. He's right now in the middle of a defense where he's kind of the main and only inside backer with more of a nickel dime look. I think that's something that a lot of fans were questioning, as Javon Bullard with a beautiful poke out from, I think that was Sky Moore, to see how much in pass coverage they would stress Zaire Franklin.
And also on that play, Billy, roaring around the right end was Edgerrin Cooper at the quarterback. Very nearly got there. I want to see more of that. Personally, just as a fan, just watching him play, I'd like to see him make more plays at the quarterback in the offensive backfield. And I think Jonathan Gannon certainly will have that as part of his scheme. There's no doubt in my mind about that. We may see a little more of that. Javon Bullard, the only thing, he is such a good player, Billy. The only thing you're looking for, the only area where he could grow a little bit, takeaways. Forced turnovers, takeaways. That's the area, and I think he will. But he is an excellent slot corner, and he's got safety. Safety probably by trade originally, but this is a kid. That's what you're looking for in the slot now, because teams are going to more, as we talked yesterday, of a physical attack. They're running the football more in the National Football League. They're getting physical offensively, and you need a third safety on the field. Maybe in that slot is more appropriate today than it was 5 to 10 years ago.
Man, and Wayne, his attitude is everything, right? His attitude towards the game and his competitiveness, his physicality, I'm all about it. And his messaging after last year of trying to close games and how important it is for them to be able to unlock that part of their game. He seems like the kind of guy that might be one of the more unsung leaders of the team. Maybe a little bit of a stretch, but I don't think so. That kind of attitude is the kind of player that you want in your locker room.
No, I can't agree with you more. Evan Williams is another guy. After the playoff loss in Chicago last year, he was very blunt with his comments that we got to learn how to win these games.
Yes.
And, you don't find players saying that very often, but those are two kids who are everything you want in a football player. Evan Williams, Javon Bullard. That's what kind of excites me about this team. They have guys that, you just sit there and say, these are football players. This is what you want on your team.
Agree. Just to have those kind of young players that can, grow into hopefully the leaders of the team. As Savion Williams takes one around the right side, and Lucas Van Ness is quickly there to chase him down.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Lucas was so impressive in the OTAs and minicamp. And we all said, well, yeah, come on. It's hard to judge defensive players who, unless they're cornerbacks and safeties and are out on the perimeter covering wide receivers, it's hard to get much of a feel. But Lucas Van Ness was in the offensive backfield all of May and June. And hopefully that translates when they put the pads on him. This kid is he's just aching to reach his potential, and his potential is pretty high.
And off to the left side, we had a catch over here from number 49, Drake Dabney.
What a great name. That's a movie star name.
One.
That's
yes,
a Hollywood name, Drake Dabney.
Well, and came from Southland, Texas. So, football is all they're talking about in the Dabney household. Former SMU Mustang. There's a lot of opportunity at tight end. We just mentioned it earlier, sadly, with Luke Musgrave in his unavailability early on in camp, and it potentially might be a little longer lasting. John Fitzpatrick's in there right now. I think you kind of know what you got with John Fitzpatrick from a year ago. Was it great? Probably not, but it definitely could be a lot worse as the ball gets poked out there. I don't know who poked that one out late in the process.
Yeah, I know Tyron Hopper came up with it.
Ended up scooping it up. I like those sticky hands. But, Luke Lachey is in that young group of guys that are kind of an unknown quantity. I think Josh Wiley's on the team, and his spot's probably safe. But there might be 4 or 5 guys for that last tight end spot, and I think Dabney's right there in the middle of it.
Yeah, Dabney, Messiah Swinson, who's an excellent blocker, 6'7", 260. That's the kind of guy in the run game you want. Luke Lachey is a guy, another blocking tight end who maybe gives you a little bit more in the passing game. Wiley, you mentioned him. They like him a lot. activated late in the season last year. So there are a number of opportunities for guys in that tight end core behind Tucker Kraft. And we just hope Luke Musgrave can get back on the field, because I think he can add a dimension that outside of Tucker, the other guys don't have.
I totally agree with you. And there's an athletic standpoint there, some untapped potential that you'd love to be able to get to. Matthew Golden with a couple of good grabs in this early team portion, moving the football down the field from our right to left. And Golden around the sticks. Wayne, he was a really good player in that role early in the year. It dissipated in the middle of the year. I think it's almost slept on with Golden. His speed jumps off the page, rightfully so. J. Michael Sturdivant, your boy, good grab, and finds himself in a lot of open area. But I think the precise route running from Golden, hopefully from year 1 to year 2, gets better. But it was a little bit of a sneaky trait that he had a year ago.
Yeah, I agree. I think he got dinged up a little bit. Nothing major, but just enough to kind of take him out for a week or so. And folks, with a rookie, especially a rookie wide receiver, it's hard enough to make an impact as a wide receiver, as a rookie in these West Coast offenses. But when you start missing time, either at training camp, and forget it, if you miss time at training camp, you're buried. But even during the regular season, it can be hard to overcome that.
One guy we have not talked about, and I'm seeing right here getting some instruction on the defensive line, is Carl Brooks. And pretty impressive career that he's carved out. And Wayne, he's going to get counted upon. He seemingly hasn't gotten talked about much at all. But his steadiness, I think, is just in there. He's a steady force. He came on later into the year, I thought. But he's going to be a part of this thing, and he's still running with the ones, no doubt about it, with Javon Hargrave out.
He had 3.5 sacks in 2024. Last year, limited action at 16 games, 7 starts. But you're right. He's a guy solid on that line. Warren Brinson's another. And they're probably going to put Warren maybe at nose tackle, maybe the extra tackle on that defensive line. We'll see. But, there's some possibilities here as the team moves far away from us down to the left side of the field.
This is where the big Banach energy, Wayne, hopefully comes in handy, as I got chastised a little bit earlier today on the Huddle, which is found on these same stations, 5 to 8 a.m. On Fox Sports Radio Wisconsin, that I didn't have enough eyes on some of the play calls and the energy that was being exuded by defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon on day one. But it's just, we all have different strokes for different folks. Not everybody, as I made mention, can be Jeff Hafley, whose face got red not from sunburn, from just getting all involved throughout. But there has been a really sharp pacing to the defense and even just the substitutions on the first couple of days.
And people said, well, it looked like the defense may have been a little behind the offense yesterday. That very well could be, but the defense is installing a whole new process.
Right.
So they're probably going to be a little bit behind in the early going, but I agree. And, the thing that Jonathan Gannon does, and I know Matt LaFleur is excited about it, was talking about it this morning, and that the way they disguise the different things they're going to do, the pass rush, the coverage in the secondary, that type of thing. That's going to be interesting to watch.
As this one rips down the field and just missing our boy Dabney with Xavier McKinney all over on the coverage with the first-team offense back in there. Now, the first-team offensive line does not include Aaron Banks today. He is down here today. Not sure, probably a little veteran rest day as they get themselves closer into pads. But Anthony Belton there at right guard. You made mention, Wayne, of the body difference that he had this year compared to last. And it is evident. He looks svelte and looks like he is locking up right there at right guard.
I agree. And I think he built his body for that position this year. People talk about, well, that's an open competition. I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
I think Anthony gained some great experience last year. He came back ready to play this position this year. I've talked to him. I think he's going to be fine at the right guard spot. Christian Watson shaking open. The thing that you got to like about what we talked about it for those who weren't with us yesterday. The thing about Watson and Golden, when you see their speed and you understand their speed, you think, these guys are just going to fly by guys. No, they run the full route tree, which I think makes them incredibly dangerous.
Yes, and when Watson can pair that with the willingness and physicality in the blocking standpoint, I think there's another, hopefully, just availability unlocks another gear for Christian Watson. But like you just mentioned, the full route tree on top of the threat that you can run or pass in his direction is a tough thing for defenses to have to handle, as Lucas Van Ness is out there covering Josh Jacobs. The first-team offense going up against a first-team defensive look here on the far side of the field. Day 2 of Packers training camp into the team portion. Brenton Cox out there as well with the defensive ends. And Tyron Hopper and Isaiah McDuffie, haven't really mentioned it. Isaiah McDuffie locks himself in with a contract extension, Wayne. There's something to just having good glue guys and good players that fit into their role and know their role. Duffy just seems like a perfect role player in an NFL defense that's learning a new scheme.
Yeah, no question about it. And, Matt called him one of the glue pieces on that defense and special teams as well. There's Jaden Reed catching a pass under the coverage of Brandon Cisse.
And Cisse right there to give a thump if they would have been with pads, no doubt.
This kid is and we talked about Cisse yesterday. He was one of the best run-stopping cornerbacks in major college football a year ago. So I think that kid's got a chance to start right away. I really do, because he can not only give you support against the run and is a good tackler, but he also has obviously coverage ability.
And I mean, just inside of 21, right? I mean, like,
he just turned 21.
Just turned 21, so he's just able to celebrate with you after big wins, which is a good thing for the youngin to have. But over on the far side, you have the first pick of the Packers in 25 and 26 going head-to-head, and Golden and Cisse. Ball goes right over to Golden, and Cisse's a little tick that he wasn't there quick enough, but a great turnaround, beautiful timing to Golden.
Great route. Great route by Golden, especially the end of that route. He turned the cornerback around, and the ball was right there. People are wondering about the Packers offense. If you look at the numbers overall last year, Billy, they would tell you middle of the pack. I mean, 16th in scoring, 15th in yards, 15th on the ground, 17th through the air. But I think this offense has a lot more to get. I think they're going to be top 10, solid top 10 in all of those categories this coming season if things work out.
It's one of the reasons why, as our presenting sponsor, the Potawatomi Sportsbook, that's one of the reasons why I think at 220 plus 225 to win the NFC North might be one of my favorite investments on the board. Now, granted, some people would say he might be a little bit of a homer. Did I also have that investment a year ago? Sure. Did I feel really, really good about that investment in the middle of the year? Yeah. Did I potentially think that we were just going to double down and run through and maybe have that money spent? Absolutely. That is why it is an 18-week, 17-game season, Wayne. Got to finish, just like we talked about last year is the motto of the offseason. Finishing games, finishing seasons, absolutely, and finishing a team portion. The Green Bay Packers will do here with their second unit and Tyrod Taylor at the helm on the quarterback spot. Wayne Larrivee, voice of the Green Bay Packers, to my right. I'm Bill Schmid. Thanks for streaming us on YouTube, Facebook, and X, always free on the iHeartRadio app and Fox Sports Radio Wisconsin. We're back after this with more of Day 2 of Packers training camp.
Today's practice at Packers training camp is underway, and we're bringing all of the storylines to you as they happen.
A couple of throws already in camp that have been exceptional.
Welcome back to Training Camp Live, presented by Potawatomi Sportsbook. Let's return to our perch at Ray Nitschke Field and rejoin the voice of the Packers, Wayne Larrivee, and Packers OT host, Bill Schmid.
Thanks for joining us and making us maybe your lunch date on this beautiful thirsty Thursday in the good land. I'm Bill Schmid, host of Packers OT, alongside the Hall of Fame voice of the Green Bay Packers, Wayne Larrivee. Now, soon to be celebrating the Packers' first regular season dagger. Wayne, have you dusted off the dagger in preparation for the 2026 season?
I got to shake off some rust. I mean, that's what the preseason's all about, Billy. By the way, we're like a couple of pigeons on the perch here watching practice and taking handouts whenever we can get them.
Oh, yeah, never saying no. Never saying no.
Our man Will down here is handing us water, but we'll take something more,
Yeah, I mean, especially if there's something stiffer.
If you want to stiffen it up a little bit, we're not adverse to that.
We're
professionals.
No. And people have said that once it's hot, the brown stuff doesn't taste as good. I say au contraire. I think it always tastes solid, especially
for medicinal purposes only.
Yes, correct. Emotional support is generally where it goes to. Wayne, some highlights of that early team portion, courtesy of our friends over there on the other side, sweating on the Packers beat. Mike Spofford put it with a Xavier McKinney with a diving deflection over the middle. That was the ball intended for Drake Dabney that we mentioned, but a couple of quick connections to Christian Watson as well as Matthew Golden, and a shallow completion to Jaden Reed against Brandon Cisse. Then Matthew Golden with the stop that we had talked about against Cisse. So they went right at him twice. And I like the fact of trying to put the rookie into a pressure cooker early against your best two wide receivers. If you're going to be playing at this level, this is what it's going to look like.
And you know what? Brandon did not look out of place on either situation at all. Jordan Love has talked about that as well. Jordan talks about, he'll test guys on the defensive side. He'll also test his guys. He'll make a throw, and we've talked about this in the past, Billy. Rodgers used to do this all the time. He'd throw a couple of picks, and the media would go, "Oh, Aaron Rodgers throwing interception." No, they're trying things here. They're trying to see, okay, can 87, can he go up and get the ball in press coverage, contested? Can he make the contested catch? That kind of thing. I'm going to throw him this ball. I probably wouldn't do it if it was a regular season game, but I'm going to do it now to see what I've got here in this guy. And they do the same thing with defensive players too. I mean, they want to see Brandon Cisse cover the top two receivers on this squad. Yeah, if he can cover them, he's probably got a pretty good chance of covering other receivers around the league. And we're going to see a lot of good ones starting in Minnesota.
Right. That's the thing. I mean, as much as you can look at the schedule, and we talked about the first couple of days, first couple of games yesterday a little bit, you can be somewhat dismissive of it. The one place you can't is at the wide receiver position. All of those teams that you're going to face early on are going to be legit offenses that are going to pose tough threats on the outside. Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, number one, no doubt about it. Then you go into week number 2, you're taking on one of the better wide receivers in football in Garrett Wilson. And a couple of days later, when you come here, Drake London's coming off one of the better seasons around as well. So you get tested at that spot quickly, early, and often. Also, our friend Wes Hodkowitz of Packers.com mentioned that Matt LaFleur wanted edge rushers working on the edges. Lucas Van Ness certainly did that against Jordan Morgan, Wes writes. Xavier McKinney, as he breaks up the play there. And Matt did talk about that today with a little curtness, Wayne, of when we're working on edge rushes, we want to work on the edge of guys. We don't want to run right through them and bull rush without pads on. That's putting your offensive line in a precarious situation with no pads on in a bull rush setting. But it also forces you to kind of work some other things that these edge rushers are going to do.
No, it really does. And it's a game of angles, especially that pass rush dance that goes on, the blocking and the pass rushing. It's a game of angles and getting leverage, angles and leverage. And that's what it's all about. Yeah, so, hey, I understand where Matt is on this. They don't have pads on yet, No, the bull rush is what are you accomplishing anyway, besides maybe getting somebody hurt without pads on? So, save that stuff for next week.
Then
There's plenty of time.
Yeah, at that point, you might have to be the guy walking across the street back to the locker room without your shoes on, because we saw that last year with too much contact in the non-contact. The kicking game, we're probably not going to see a ton more here today. Now, I do know Matt LaFleur mentioned that they were working on some things for somebody to be able to snap in the missing Matt Orzik category. What do you think in, Wayne, the excitement or the nervousness? Because right away, we're gonna get questions about Jordan Love and the offense, but I think it was the third question asked to me by a friend yesterday. Well, how did the kickers look? Well, they didn't kick, but there's going to be a slow build up to that competition, which is going to be heating up here pretty soon.
Oh, no question. And also, I like the way, and we saw this in the spring, Cam Acord runs his practices a little bit different than Richie Bisaccia. I like what he's doing. There's a lot of strategy behind what they're doing out there, and the fundamentals they're working on right now. So, but hey, listen, folks, Mike McCarthy gave special teams a lot of time in practice. Matt LaFleur does it. We've seen this, and it's one thing to give these players a lot of time in practice and for these coaches to get it together. It's another thing once the regular season hits, and where the Packers were better on special teams over the last 3 years or so was, I felt, they found a punter. And maybe the best punter in the league, or one of them, all right, in Daniel Whelan. They are struggling to find a kicker, and they're struggling to find a return game. But the coverage units have been better. They have actually, no question, been better. Let's give credit where credit is due. Sky Moore is going to be I would think Sky Moore was brought here to correct the return game situation. You need a guy at that position, Billy. It's not just about scheme and that type of thing. Kick returners are a certain breed. They're a special breed. Some can do it, most can't. Okay, we're going to see a guy who has proven that he can do it on this level in Sky Moore. And what can he bring to these special teams? Because if they have a return game, they didn't last year, but if they have a return game, I think that's going to put the offense in a much better position. And you know that well. Field position is everything.
Man, they've had a negative in the return game for a majority of the last 5 years. I think of when Tyler Swerve and Irvin got a 15-yard punt return and they became a positive punt return yardage team. And what was that, like week 12 of the year? You're desperate to get something more out of that position. I would struggle to think they don't. And you're right on Whelan, where he has become, and I think last year became a little bit of a threat at certain spots to how are you going to be able to handle and what is your decision-making process going to be when you know you're going to be able to pin somebody back?
Yeah, no doubt. He's a very talented kid. He led the league, folks, in punting last year, in gross punting. And why? Well, net punting is important. Yeah, I get that. He was at fourth in net punting. But the key here is I can't remember the last time a cold weather kicker led the league in gross punting.
That's a great point.
Yeah. I
right
just,
on that.
I'm sure it's happened, but I can't remember the last time it's happened. That title usually goes to guys kicking indoors.
Yeah, and we've seen it. We've fallen victim to the J.K. Scotts of the world, where you can be really, really good when the weather is warm, and then when it cools down, that ball is just not going to fly nearly the same way. There's some other things to be able to pick up here at practice. We just had a cool moment with Aaron Banks working one-on-one with Jagger Burton. Now both are out. It's a load management day for Aaron Banks, a little veteran day, and he's working with Jagger Burton, who checked out yesterday. But both could be players and play significant roles for the Packers coming up here this season. Ball goes off of Christian Watson's hands.
Yeah, pass thrown behind him a little bit. Yeah, tough catch.
Would have been a spectacular one to be able to make. Would have been a very, very tough.
And that ball had some heat on it too. That had teeth.
Jordan Love throws one of the tighter spirals you see in the NFL.
That's a good point.
Wayne, he doesn't get enough credit for the fastball, though.
Yeah.
He can get on you very, very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
With that one. First team defense in there, and one of our guys to spotlight throughout camp has been Brenton Cox. He's over there right now in with the first team defense going opposite Lucas Van Ness. Cox could really be a producer for you as Matthew Golden finds a lot of green grass there against that zone defense. Could play a significant role for you on the pass rush side because he's gotten home. And Van Ness, and recapping just that first team period as we get into the second one, was really, really good against the run leverage-wise in that first period.
He is. And he's, I think he's an underrated run defender, right? He certainly can set the edge. And he's strong enough. They don't call him Hercules for nothing.
Sure, yes.
He's strong enough to set the edge against the run, and that's what you want in that edge rusher. Micah Parsons, another guy. Nobody talks about the fact that he's very good against the run, but his pass rushing prowess overwhelms that or overshadows that aspect of his game.
877-794-1973 can be the phone number to reach and get in touch with the show as well. And we had a couple of comments on the YouTube page as well asking us, will Tucker start the season? That's been pretty locked in, Wisconsin Sports Fanatic, commenting that one in. Now, Kraft not back out here yet. He had mentioned it yesterday after practice when Goody and Matt mentioned it as well. He's going to be ready sooner rather than later. I also think, Wayne, some of that might coincide with a name hitting a piece of paper that makes him a rather wealthy man at some point.
I think so. That's the last, from what I can tell, one of the last shoes to drop in the contract situation. They've got to get that done. It's going to be a big one, and it takes time on big contracts. It really does. But there's every indication he's going to be here long term, and he's one of their building blocks.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got a bunch of them they've signed, and so. But, yeah, the concern I think the people outside of the Packers organization have more so than inside the organization is the Packers, a lot of their stars are coming back from injury.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, there's certain question. You don't know how that's going to go with everybody, but everyone's different. But, I'm really confident these guys will come back, and they'll be good. They'll be good to go.
One of my favorite parts of training camp is finding the different gear that gets busted out. This individual that just walked by us, Wayne, had one of the cooler shirts I've seen, the Wheel of Fortune board. It said, would any Packer fan like to guess the puzzle? And it had pieces that spelled out Bears still suck. Creative in the merch game. That's well done. Starlove, we have the best talent on D, but how do we turn it around and start forcing turnovers like we used to? Wayne, if there was a special recipe to be able to forcing turnovers, every team would be doing it.
Yeah.
I also think some of it is the your best players making big time plays. We saw Evan Williams squeeze a couple a year ago, but Xavier McKinney was close. Just needs to be able to lock some of those in. I don't know that there's a magic potion for that.
Well, X had 8 interceptions the year before, and he had a couple last year or thereabouts, but he also led the league unofficially.
Yes, correct.
Apparently, and dropped interceptions. So, I think it's just a lot of times it's the bounce of the ball, folks, on turnovers, and we've talked about that on takeaways. And hopefully the bounce of the ball will go the Packers' way more this year.
Tyrod Taylor coordinating the Packers offense here with the second group going up against the second defense, and we'll get into our second hour of day number 2. Training Camp Live continues momentarily after a Pierre Strong run, and we're back right after this. Continue to stream us, comment on the YouTube page, Twitter and X, Facebook as well. You can hit us up on the talk and text line, NicolaLaw.com, talk and text line 877-794-1973. Voice of the Green Bay Packers, Wayne Larrivee. I'm Billy Schmid. Hour 2 of Training Camp Live on Fox Sports Radio Wisconsin is next.
Football season is here.
Shotgun snap to Lovey, bobbles for a moment, now lost it. Right side of the end zone. Watson leaping grab. Oh, sensational touchdown catch.
Packers training camp is underway in Green Bay, and nobody is bringing you closer to the action than us.
We are enjoying some special teams work, some individual drills right now for the offense and defensive linemen, DBs in front of us.
All of the storylines, all of the emerging stars, and all of the big plays out of camp. Analyzed by two guys who know Packers football inside and out.
Quarterbacks at this time of year, veteran quarterbacks especially, they'll be trying throws here that they wouldn't try elsewhere.
Training camp coverage on Fox Sports Radio Wisconsin is presented by Potawatomi Sportsbook. Now, live from the perch above Ray Nitschke Field, with the voice of the Packers, Wayne Larrivee.
And the Packers deliver the dagger.
Here is Packers OT host, Bill Schmid.
Welcome back live to Ray Nitschke Field as the Green Bay Packers enjoy day number 2 of their 2026 training camp. I'm Bill Schmid, host of Packers OT, alongside the voice of the Green Bay Packers, Wayne Larrivee, as now we get into some special teams period, wrapping up the second team portion of practice number 2. Wayne, we almost had the play of the day on two sides. Would have been a great interception by Keaton Oladapo. Would have been a spectacular leaping one-handed catch by Savion Williams. But it's a game of inches, folks. Ball hits the turf. A lot of oohs and ahs, but a lot of athleticism there in that team.
And the quarterback, Kyron Drones, was rolling out under pressure and let it go and got it downfield. It wobbled a little bit, but he got it there. So showed a lot of potential on all facets of that play. I'm
glad you mentioned Drones, and we talked about him a tick in the first segment, but he had probably the best play yesterday, rolling out to his right and hitting Nair in the back of the end zone for a touchdown. He's going to get so many opportunities in the preseason game. So Packers fans get used to seeing and hearing that name. But just that position, the third quarterback spot, because it's locked up. This year and last, we've gone into camp knowing who the backup quarterback was going to be. Last year, obviously, Malik Willis, who's now starting in Miami. But Tyrod Taylor has done just about everything you would need to do to probably solidify some of that spot. And now Trey smacks his first field goal or extra point of the 2026 camp.
And if you're wondering at home who's doing the snapping, it's my guy Sean Ryan, starting center.
Looks good. Wayne looks good doing it. That's not an easy thing to do when you're that wide. He's got some longer arms, but I mean that's a tough bend, even tougher if he's got pads on. We're wondering if the emergency long snapper would be. Maybe it is Sean Ryan.
Maybe it is.
A little club that he's got in his bag.
He may be establishing that right here before our eyes because, he did a little bit of it yesterday too, a little high snap there. But, again, Daniel Whelan has such great hands in spotting the ball, and then Trey Smack pokes it through.
Is Trey Smack going to draw some of the loudest cheers throughout training camp when the ball goes through?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Because everybody remembers all the kicks that have been missed here in recent years.
The favorite player to talk about a lot of times, backup quarterback and kicker. We get them both out here in the first 3 minutes of hour number 2 of day number 2 of training camp live. But the kicking competition's a serious beast. They talked about it yesterday, Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur. Matt mentioned it again here today. Matt Orzik not being able to snap kind of slows down and changes a little bit of the operation. Probably not exactly how you would like to start camp that way in the kicking game, but as long as you can get some of the work in protection-wise, seems like that's all that they will be asking for and hoping for as we break up here. And we'll get into one more, I think, team period before wrapping up day number 2 of Packers training camp. Around the league, a couple of notable things that happened yesterday. Shamar Stewart was carted off the field, first-round pick of the Cincinnati Bengals. News out of their camp is that it was just a hyperextension. He's expected back sooner rather than later. Not as good a news for Brian Breezy, defensive lineman with the New Orleans Saints. One of the better young defensive linemen in the league is expected to be out the entire year after an ACL injury.
Oh, that's sad.
And one player that the Packers are going to be taking on early in the 2026 season, Wayne, Baker Mayfield made some news here today. Said that he's going to play out the final year of his contract in Tampa Bay. Mentioned a couple of times being really disappointed with the contract offers that were put in front of him. It's an interesting time in the league because you think that doesn't carry over. Hard not to think it doesn't set off a weird tenor of your training camp.
Yeah, I mean, it could he could focus and really have a standout year, or it could be a distraction for him and eventually the rest of the team.
We were here a couple of years ago when Jordan Love's contract was still floating out in the ether and signed, 7 or 8 days into camp. But it's difficult because it becomes still the story, even if you're not talking about it and talking right there in the midst of play number 1. Zaire Franklin comes right up
the A gap. I mean, nobody touched him, and he was in Jordan Love's lap, and Jordan got the ball away on the left side to Sky Moore, who made a nice play.
And he lets out a big, solid scream right after, celebratory, and then gets in to call the next play. I'm excited to see game action Zaire Franklin. It just feels like a player that is primed for a big resurgence, and somebody he's already making an impact from the handshake-wise. I've seen him got 5 or 6 different ones already dialed in, Wayne, taking over some of that leadership role on the defense. A good thing to be able to see.
Yeah, well, he'll be coordinating on the field. There's no doubt about that.
And Love rips one off to Christian Watson, another beautiful
Evan Williams flashed in front of that, and you sit there and say, how did Watson make that catch?
Wow.
Williams flashed right in front, and then Jordan Love, cannon arm, folks, it's not just throwing the ball deep downfield. It's threading the needle, and he had to thread the needle right there. That defense was right there. Actually, Billy, I've been impressed with the coverage I'm seeing in the secondary here in this practice today.
They've been all around it, and if you are just joining us, back at practice today is Keyshawn Nixon. He missed yesterday, a little bit of a hammy issue. He's back out there and back with the number 1 defense that's going up against the number 1 offense right now with just some different inclusions. Bo Melton in there at wide receiver after Christian Watson gets the catch, and that one falls incomplete. People would laugh, but I really enjoyed the little handoff off to the right side on the offensive line. Anthony Belton pushes off on a stunt, waits for the looping around defensive end to come into his area. Just handing stuff off when you got certain players that are in and out. Zach Tom's going to be the right tackle. I was wondering, Wayne, if Anthony Belton would play a little bit at right tackle, if he would be kind of cross-training. It does appear, and today with Jagger Burton out, it has been him at right guard, and that is all you have to worry about.
And I think they really want to, I think their intent this year is to try to keep some of these guys in one spot. I mean, obviously, Jordan Morgan at left tackle. I think Belton, the young kid, at right guard, definitely. And I'm glad to see that.
Good job holding the water by the offensive line.
Carrington Valentine had good coverage downfield on Matthew Golden that time.
And a deep ball off a free play, a perfect time. And also another good cheer that comes from the Lambeau crowd as Micah Parsons makes his way out here from the training center and grabs a couple of footballs and gives a couple of waves. Everybody excited to see the man in black over there, Micah Parsons, back out onto the field. But in his place right now, we just saw Denai Dennis Sutton with a couple of nice reps as well, finding his way into the backfield.
Indeed, yes, absolutely.
Chris McClellan in there as defensive tackle as well, this 3rd-round pick for the Packers. Brandon Cisse back in there defensively. And the zip on the football from Love, and then the deep shot going to Christian Watson that's just a little bit out in front of him.
Yeah.
There's some timing that you can get back into, but a lot of Christian Watson during training camp, just such a different and much welcomed sight. After last year, all we could see him doing was running sprints with a sled.
Benjamin St. Just had the coverage on that, the veteran cornerback, free agent acquisition for the Packers. But again, Christian had a half step on him and the ball just a little bit overthrown on the far side down there away from us.
Packers and the second team offense going up now against the second team defense as we enjoy day number 2 of training camp live. And Travis Glover, over at right tackle. And John Williams was one of their draft picks a year ago, full red shirt year. He's been lining up over at guard and left guard here. But that ball goes over to Luke Lachey, one of the undrafted tight ends from Iowa. I know there's a lot of people in the Midwest, Wayne, that you just hear a player coming from Iowa, you think he's going to be a stalwart in the NFL. Lachey definitely looks the part, big physical guy, and seems like he can at least be the inline blocker you need.
Yep.
See what you can get out of him in the pass game.
Yeah, and, he may have a little more in the passing game than people give him credit for, but certainly as an inline blocker, there's no doubt. We're getting a look at Tyrod Taylor now running the offense. This is a guy, he's got experience, 16 years of experience. Ooh, there's a pick by Jonathan Baldwin.
What a
wow, number
tremendous
37 on your program, boys and girls at home.
He comes right over the top of, was that Nair that the ball? It was either Shepard or Nair the ball was intended for.
Yeah.
Just a gorgeous
Just
play.
a great break by Baldwin from behind to make that pick. A hands catch, everything you're looking for.
And instantly a couple of the top defensive players go and celebrate with him, and Carrington Valentine and Javon Bullard setting the stage and celebrating and enjoying it. Man, Zaire Nazir Stackhouse getting in there with the celebration as well. You got to have some of the dances here, Wayne, and the defense is enjoying themselves in day one. Now, again, you get a great pick like that, you get a couple of oohs and ahs. That was an offensive player. This place would have blown up. Road game for the defense every single day.
It sure is, yep, no doubt.
Offense still with Tyrod Taylor out there as well. Nair in the slot, and J. Michael Sturdivant, who we talked about a little bit, undrafted rookie from Florida a little bit yesterday, definitely looks the part, had a tough drop in team portion number 1. It seems rather obvious, but I got to assume with some of those young players, the ones that are coming into their first couple of days of an NFL camp, this next series ends up being the most important, right? You had a couple of reps. How do you respond after going back and returning? Just the little ins and outs. Those are a lot of the things that you're looking for here in camp. Not necessarily who's making the plays, who's making a catch. It's how do you respond after some of the adversity? Because it's only going to come more once the regular season rolls around.
No doubt. And the coaches look for that too, Billy. Kyle McCord to Isaiah Nair. Nair's a very interesting prospect on this football team. Came on the squad late last year, played in that game up in Minnesota. They really liked him at OTAs and minicamp, but Isaiah Nair is a name to keep an eye on. And we've, of course, mentioned J. Michael Sturdivant. Will Shepard's been here for a while. Those are the guys that, so you got to figure – there are probably 4 or 5 guys going for what? Maybe one open position?
Maybe one.
In that receiving core, one
maybe
or two?
One and one maybe on the practice squad, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of where you're competing for. And this is the fun part of training camp now, Wayne, for the next couple of weeks, where you try to figure out how are you going to keep all these guys? How are you going to keep all these guys?
Yeah.
NFL teams are all trying to sweat out how are we going to keep 5 or 6 players. It's one of the true joys of training camp in the NFL. And another joy for the Green Bay Packers is being able to welcome back some former players who are here over on the sideline today. Nick Collins, Nick Pick 36, walking around over on the other side. James Jones, our friend and colleague on the Packers Radio Network, and old number 42, Morgan Burnett, out scouting around and
Morgan Burnett is here. Wow, that's
I like
great.
Seeing that name.
He was great. Yeah,
a tremendous player for a long time.
We've had the double horn. You see a lot. You see the guys who look like coaches but aren't. They're scouts. They're heading off. They know first and foremost practice has ended, and Matt LaFleur has the team gathered around him out in the middle of the field. So another, I think a productive day of practice, and they'll have another one tomorrow, and then the pads will come on next week, and we get into training camp for real.
These keep going quicker and quicker. Thanks to everybody joining us out here at Packers training camp and on the YouTube stream, X, as well as Facebook. We'll be back after this, and after they break things down here, day number 2 of practice has concluded. Our coverage has yet to cease. We got a little bit more of training camp live from the perch at Ray Nitschke Field. He's the voice of the Green Bay Packers. I'm Billy Schmid. It's all presented by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Bet big, bet bold, and bet above the rest on Fox Sports Radio Wisconsin. It's training camp live.
to Training Camp Live, presented by Potawatomi Sportsbook. Let's go back to Ray Nitschke Field and rejoin the voice of the Packers, Wayne Larrivee, and Packers OT host Bill Schmid.
The fresh cut grass smells beautiful. It's a great day for Packers football, day number 2 of Packers training camp. Here, live from the perch at Ray Nitschke Field, I'm Bill Schmid, alongside the voice of the Green Bay Packers, Wayne Larrivee, as the Packers wrap up their second practice. Wayne, helmets going into the bins, position breakdowns finishing up after the full team work. Good hour and a half crisp practice here today. And once again, feels like the defense had a good day in day number 2 of a new scheme.
Yeah, it seems like it. I thought even when the offense made plays, the coverage was right there. There were a couple of times Golden got wide open a little bit on over the middle, but beyond that, I thought the coverage was right there. And I think so far these first 2 practices, they're nothing more than OTA type practices, but nonetheless, I think they got some good work done here.
It's spot on. It's not much more than OTA practice for what you're seeing in terms of the on the field work. The preparation for it is long. It takes a long time, and they'll now be able to go in and rip through a lot of the film. But wide receivers, Christian Watson and Matthew Golden, felt like they also had themselves a phenomenal day on the outside, those 2 in particular.
Yeah, really. And Sky Moore had a play. And, you look at some of these guys. And again, it's hard for us, Billy. We're up here broadcasting. We're watching this. You take it all in. We haven't had time to really digest what they did out there. But I thought, it was a nice, good practice both ways. And the hard part about training camp, Bill, is once we get through next week, we'll all be thinking great things. What we think of, who's going to beat this team?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because all we've seen is, okay, if the offense throws an interception, well, the defense got an interception,
making
right?
big plays all over the place. Yes.
There's a lot of positivity when you watch your team go against each other. Then you get into the preseason games and you see a little something with your backup personnel, the guys trying to make the roster. And then you really don't see anything until you get to the regular season. And then that's an eye-opener.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's difficult, and I joke about this with Hunter Baumgart's producing the show back in our network studios, and we joke about it with spring training. You're watching the same guys take batting practice for 7 weeks.
Yeah.
They're going to look good.
Yeah.
At some point,
At
some point, he's hit one over the batter's eye, and you think his power's untapped. I don't know how on earth he's not hitting 20 home runs. It can be difficult when you don't think, like, there's a lot of guys here that could catch 40 or 50 balls. Savion Williams is going to be a unique case. He had a couple of really good plays earlier on here today, probably had the catch of the day as well, and really a forgotten man in that wide receiver room. When you've talked about the big 3, the 2 that got paid, Reed and Watson, and the first rounder of Golden, obviously take a lot of the oxygen. But Williams was really, we talk about the guys that were dinged up and fought through stuff a year ago. Wayne, we learned later into the year just how dinged up he was, still trying to give them something last year.
Oh, no doubt. And, he's a guy, he can help you in so many different ways, Billy. As a receiver, obviously, big body, big target out there. The one thing when I see him run, especially over the middle, I'm thinking, wow, that's a big target. I almost think tight end. You know what I mean? He's got that dimension to him, that look about him. But he's a wide receiver. He's fast. And the other thing I like about him is that they can hand him the ball on offense, as they did a number of times last year. And on those jet sweeps and that type of thing, he can be a very dangerous player. And he's physical.
Yes.
Guys on the corner don't want to come up and tackle him.
And there's something to having somebody who's 6'3" doing that instead of, Jaden Reed is very shifty, and I think he's a physical runner. But that size is something different. And I think Williams went in the draft process in particular. I know when he gets drafted, you and I were rather intrigued. You didn't think they were going to go wide receiver again, at least that quickly.
Right.
But some of the situations that unfolded last year, I anticipate forced their hand in some of the offseason moves, whether it's letting Romeo Doubs walk in free agency. They weren't going to pay him that money. And Dontavian Wicks getting a 5th rounder for a 5th round pick 3 years later is a pretty good value to have. But seeing what they think they might have there may have allowed them some more confidence in making a move like that.
I think you're right. And we're seeing the defensive line just did some sprints across the field. And you wonder the big guys. Let's get the big guys tired, and then let's work them out.
I get a little more conditioning in there.
Actually,
I like
it's
that.
more like a jog than a sprint. It's kind of like what I do at CrossFit. It's a jog. It's not a sprint. I'm going hard. Darn it.
I'm going as fast as I can, and if you ask me to prove that to you, I'll prove it by going slower.
This watch says my heart rate is 179. Man, that's high.
And instead of the internet, that's what I needed. You can't change that one. It is a beautiful day and was a beautiful one here for practice number 2 as the corners are going through some individual post-practice work. And our friend Chris McClellan, third-round rookie, doing what a rookie should do after day 2 of practice here, Wayne. Looks like he's picking up some helmets.
Yeah.
So chivalry is not dead, as well as a gentle welcome to the NFL moment. We can't let you not carry some pads.
Yeah.
And since there's no pads, grab as many of those beautiful yellow lids as you can, young man.
And he or another rookie will probably have to pick up the pizzas at Sammy's, maybe
Thank
Saturday
goodness,
night or
yes.
something. There's just certain little things you have to do as a rookie to earn your stripes off the field.
Interesting one here as well in the post-practice, individual work. I wonder this, Wayne, when you see so few times on the field and opportunities in practice, so much of what they're doing out here after, while not forced upon players, I think there's a lot of players that need and want some extra work. We're seeing the 2 young quarterbacks throwing some balls over here to Sturdivant and Will Shepard and company, where it's we only get so much time on the field, but I always want to get a little bit more because this is, at the end of the day, competition for a livelihood. The biggest job interview some of these guys are ever going to have.
Okay, they worked out a little over an hour yesterday, about an hour and a half, as you said, today. When they get the pads on, they're going 2 hours.
Right, no doubt.
But you'll still see people after practice, even a hard physical padded practice, work at the jugs gun and things like that. Yeah, the little bit of extra that you can do during training camp, obviously, that's a recipe for making the squad.
Couple of corners and DBs going through some slow, individual drills in front of us. We see Imani Jackson, the second of the 2 corners, being taken by the Packers out of Alabama this year, and just working on exactly what we watched young Jonathan Baldwin do earlier in practice. Undercut that crossing route, which was one of maybe the best plays that we saw here today. Wayne has taken the football away, something they're going to desperately have to do.
I think it was the best play we've seen. And Jonathan Baldwin's in his second year out of UNLV, 16 weeks last year on the practice squad. He did play in the Minnesota regular season finale, 66 snaps. In that game, Billy, he had 7 tackles, 4 solos. And, he also played a little bit in the wild card playoff game at Chicago the following week. This is a guy to kind of keep an eye on, number 37. It'll be interesting to see how many safeties they keep. I think they'll probably keep more. They might keep 5 safeties.
Yeah, and
based on that nickel position or the slot cover
totally
is a lot of times a safety today.
Yeah, and Wayne, I think we, the last couple of years, we've talked so much about the changing kickoff rule and the body types that teams are going to be looking for on special teams. That spot is definitely one. That hybrid safety, I think of like a Dale Buchanan was the name that Arizona had for a number of years, where he's a little thicker than most safeties, very undersized linebacker, but the ability to go in both of those levels is kind of a undervalued piece right now, isn't it?
That era you're talking about, Jeff Fisher was the head coach of the Rams. He's a defensive guy under Buddy Ryan. And that was when they started saying, okay, we're going to take a safety and bring him down into the box because these offenses are getting a little too fast on us now. And you need a little more speed instead of just this brute strength. You're right, undersized linebacker, really a safety by trade. But the more you can do, as LaFleur said earlier today, the more you can do as a player, the more value you have for your football team, obviously.
Like a couple of the linebackers also with some extra work here after practice, Zaire Franklin amongst them, and Tyron Hopper and Isaiah McDuffie. Now, McDuffie re-signed, glue guy. We talked about him a tick. Hopper pops with the pick in the playoff game, Wayne, and I think there's some folks that have been wondering when he was going to get another opportunity, more of an opportunity. Feels like he's pretty entrenched, though. That's not a bad place to be in year number 3. Just good depth piece for them at inside linebacker because you can tell there's some real athleticism.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Now, the other thing he does, third leading special teams tackler from a year ago,
Amen.
12 total tackles. So he and a guy like Nick Neiman, Kristen Welch, these are inside linebackers. Franklin, Cooper, McDuffie are in. How many inside backers do you keep? A lot of that has to do with special teams. And I would say all three of those guys I just mentioned, Hopper, Welch, Neiman, are all excellent special teams players, and that's a big part of your coverage. Then you get to the edge rushers. You've got Brenton Cox. Dennis Sutton is going to have a role somewhere along the way. Colin Oliver I'm sure is in a battle to make this roster in one form or another. But that's what you're looking at. A lot of those guys, can they play special teams? How much can they contribute there? How important are they in that aspect of it?
And that's one thing that you touched on it a tick earlier. We got to see a little bit of it. I'm excited to see how he develops and changes some of the thought processes or just, procedures during camp. There's a new special teams coordinator, and I think Acord's done a good job. Everything looks rather concise, but also we're so early. Just focus on the easiest stuff. The fundamentals is basically all we've seen out of special teams, and there's a reason for that 7 weeks away from playing a real game.
No question about it. And, again, we talk about a new scheme on defense. Well, special teams going to be a little different too. You've got a new special teams coordinator. Cam Acord, for those who don't know, spent, I believe, 4 years in New England, a couple of years as the coordinator under Bill Belichick with the Patriots. And then the last 2 years, he was the assistant special teams coordinator for the New York Giants. So he brings a nice background in. He's, I like to see an assistant coach with a varying background, not just one place, because that's going to mean I'm getting a little more complete coach here. He's got some other ideas. It's not just one system.
And I also think that position requires a real leader, no doubt about it, from somebody that's got to coach pretty much everybody on the football team. You got to be able to figure out what triggers you're going to be able to trip with 80-some guys, unless they start putting Jordan Love out on kick return, which I don't anticipate. There's like 45 of the 53 players on the team that you're going to be dealing with and working with, whether or not it's, field goal block or field goal protections. You're touching and having some communication and coaching with just about everybody on there.
And I know around here people get real critical about the special teams, but understand what they're up against, okay? Special teams, unlike offense and defense, they get one play at a time. Okay?
That's fair.
One play at a time. Secondly, due to injuries elsewhere, your special teams coverage units and return units could be changing on a weekly basis. You lose a starter one place. Now, all of a sudden, let's just, for example, all right, Nick Neiman has to become a starter. Well, chances are his role on special teams will be diminished because they're not going to be using him as much there. So you got to get another guy ready to play his role on some of those teams' coverage. But so there's a lot of variables that go into it. But the fact is they get one play at a time. So the offense has a bad first down. Well, they got second and third down, or they got another first down to rectify.
They got some opportunities to make up for it, no doubt about it. Let's get to some comments here as we wrap up day number 2. Packers are starting to fully exit the field. There was Carrington Valentine taking a couple of pictures and signing a couple of autographs here after day number 2. Cheesehead Tyler said, "Happy camp, boys. Twitter fingers are on the beat, are tickling the touchscreens about the new DC, Jonathan Gannon sending Cowboy Coop off the edge on a scale of 1 to 2011 Clay Matthews. How great is he looking there?"
I'm glad I mentioned that when I saw him coming off the edge, and he was all over Jordan Love on that play. But, boy, this is something we talked about, Billy, and I've talked on a lot of different shows about it. I think it's a matter of will they be able to deploy him? Obviously, Jeff Hafley did not feel comfortable with what he had last year, getting edge into the offensive backfield as much. Coop, who's an excellent coverage linebacker, excellent athlete, appears to have good instinct. They used a lot of times he was either stopping the run or he was covering somebody out of the backfield or a tight end. So I think this year now, when you have a guy like Zaire Franklin who can handle a lot of things on the inside, maybe this is where we're going to see a little more of Edgerrin Cooper showing up.
Yeah, and it's not any knock against the way that Quay Walker played. He played some really good football for the team. But there's a veteran leadership there. There's a real consistency and also just the the aggressiveness to say, now you got to go get the football.
Yeah.
That's what we're asking you to do, is go get the football and go make plays. Allow that playmaking ability, which had him lead the team in tackles for loss, sacks, forced fumbles, and interceptions in college in the SEC.
Yeah.
Those numbers you don't just make up.
No, you don't. And the other guy we're anxious to see when they put the pads on is Dennis Sutton, who had great numbers at Penn State. And somehow, and I know Goody was trying to move up in the draft. We talked about it. He was trying to move up in the draft, get back into the third round to draft Dennis Sutton. He couldn't do it, but then was shocked when Sutton's still there.
Sitting there.
Goody's picking in the fourth round. It was like, wow, okay, boom.
I got itchy trigger finger on a trade there, Wayne, while we were doing the entire fourth round.
Yeah, you were about to send a card up there for Goody.
I was going to sprint up to the podium. I would have helped him out if they needed to. Before we wrap things up here in segment number 2, Starlev on the YouTube comments had a good one here. Wanted to say, thank you, Wayne Larrivee. We live in Texas, so we don't get to watch all of the games. But even the ones that we do watch, we mute, turn you and Rock on, watch all the games with you guys commenting. And that is a cool one to be able to bring this conversation and this broadcast to people across the country.
It sure is.
There's so many like myself who grew up in the state where this was the last vacation my dad and I would take during the summer. He'd take one day off, save one of those vacation days from the factory, and we'd come up for it. It's an incredible family-friendly and cost-affordable day out here. But for those Packers fans, there's so many of them that aren't here. We're glad that we're able to bring you some of what the sights and sounds.
Oh, it's an honor. It's a pleasure to do that, and we enjoy the conversation at practice and reacting to what we see.
And for Packers fans like Starlev, who's listening to you and gets to listen to Wayne call games on the Packers radio network, Wayne, you're doing a phenomenal job of firing out every single one of these names. I mean, every single play that happened throughout, there were 5 or 6 times you didn't even have to consult the sheet. Mid-season form, my friend, 2 weeks away from the first preseason game.
No, just trying to do a little homework here, guys.
How do you work ahead now for the Pittsburgh preseason game? Because these are got to be some of the most challenging ones with 90 players.
The first one is tough. It's a little different preparation, but the first one you don't have any tape to look at. For example, the second one, I'll have some Denver tape to look at, so I'll see a lot of their backups in there. And that when you can see them on tape, that helps in the memorization process. But Pittsburgh, you kind of start a week or two early, and you start that process. And my chart is already put together, and I've got information, so I'm kind of trying to, do that aspect of
We
it.
could also, maybe some old friends could maybe help you. We just call Aaron and Big Mike, and maybe they could just give you some
Big Mike will fill me in, I'm sure. Absolutely. No, he's my guy. I would have to say, of all the head coaches I've worked with, the two of them that stand out to me from a people standpoint, from a talent standpoint, from a head coaching standpoint, are Marv Levy and Mike McCarthy. Marv was my first coach when we were in Kansas City. My first year was his first year as head coach of the Chiefs, and I was so happy and pleased to see him go on to Buffalo, have tremendous success there. Wish he had won a Super Bowl, but then was rewarded with induction into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and we were all very proud of Marv Levy and what he did there. One of the most eloquent coaches you will ever talk to. And he's still around. He's like 99 years old, lives down there in Chicago, always loved the Cubs. And
he ends up being one of the beautiful marvels of human society, being able to be as sharp as he is still at this age. And, I mean, he posted a video, I want to say last year, about the Buffalo Bills going into the postseason. And, Wayne, the hair on my neck just stood up because it felt like you're in a meeting room with the old coach. A phenomenal one. And
he really was. And, I'll remember like it was yesterday. Here I am, 23 years old, and Marv got his first head coaching job, and we're at William Jewell College in Missouri, and we're at training camp. And, after 2 days practice, Marv would run about 2 miles around that, and I ran with him.
Oh my gosh.
Was great. You don't get that
amazing.
You don't get that kind of exposure to coaches today,
No.
And I remember like it was yesterday. At night, we would stay in his dorms. As a matter of fact, Bill Poling and I used to wake him up in the morning because I was doing morning sports on KCMO, and he was in the room next door. And I used to wake him up every morning. But we would at night, after everything was down, the coaches, we'd go to the coaches' dorms, and just sit around and drink a beer or two, and the popcorn. And the popcorn was unbelievable because they cooked the popcorn in the bacon grease from that morning.
Holy
cow.
My
God.
Oh,
totally unhealthy, folks. None of you would do that today. but that was good stuff.
I was going to say that's an unbelievable delicacy to be able to enjoy. And just that kind of unfiltered access is a way of putting it, but the understanding of the shared interest here, right?
Yeah.
Like as the play-by-play man of the team, you're conveying it to fans as to why and how to enjoy the team. But there's such a weird struggle with allowing in and being afraid to be just who you are. I don't know if there's anybody more comfortable in his own skin than Marv Levy.
No.
I don't know there's ever going to be another human being.
And you know, when I would interview him, I would never have to worry about asking him something that might tick him off because he had the vocabulary to talk around anything I asked. Okay.
That's fair.
His vocabulary was phenomenal. Now, Mike Ditko is a little different story. You didn't want to tick off the old bear.
That would be a little different story.
That was another one. I walked with kick gloves there. I only talked to Mike if I absolutely needed to. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
if my life depended on it.
The Platteville ones might have been a little bit different down there in Missouri. But in Mike McCarthy's standpoint, I don't know there's a Packers fan alive watching us and listening to us that isn't incredibly happy for the human being getting that opportunity to coach his hometown team with his parents right there. It's stuff that you can't even make up.
Bill DeFabio, for those of you, if you're McCarthy fans and you want to get a little insight, Bill DeFabio went with Mike on a tour of his old neighborhood. Bill DeFabio's longtime writer for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he works for The Athletic now. The article's in The Athletic. It's a great article about Mike, and that's I had breakfast with Mike last November, and he was telling me, he said, I watch three teams. I watch the Packers, the Cowboys, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because the Steelers were his team as a kid growing up in Greenfield, one of those suburbs of Pittsburgh. So, but it's a wonderful story because it's not all roses. I mean, Mike's brother died after the 2014 season unexpectedly of a heart attack, and they were very close. And so all the places he passes now, that's the basketball court where we used to play all the time, and this over here we played stickball over here, that kind of thing. So there's a lot to it, but I'm so happy for Mike and getting that job, and think about his career.
Oh my gosh.
Head coach of the Green Bay Packers, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. There aren't three franchises much more revered than those.
No, I mean, they're three of maybe the top 10 brands in all of professional sports.
Yeah.
And to have those kind of touchstone franchises and to do it, again, your own way and have a personal touch to it. In that article, I think they said something of now the acting Art Rooney III had mentioned how much his grandfather and father would have loved a Pittsburgh guy being the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like that's stuff that you almost would write it in a book or a movie, but if you sold it to Hollywood, they might say, let's give us something a little more believable.
Yeah, exactly. No doubt. But it's great. We're all happy for Big Mike and hoping he does well, and we may get a chance to see him at that preseason game.
And that's going to be cool. Yeah, sadly, who knows? Maybe Aaron Rodgers just decides to trot out just for old time's sake. He'll be out there in a T-shirt and shorts, that's for sure.
Well, there was a quote from Aaron yesterday. Somebody asked him about, why did you come back? He said, my wife gave me permission to come back for one more season to be with Mike McCarthy in Pittsburgh. You know what? If that's true, that's good.
That's good, yes. And it's good for all of us that say, why'd you end up being able to play 18 today? I thought we could only hit 9. Well, my wife gave me permission to miss the rest of the day. So I guess I might as well enjoy the rest of the day.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man.
There's someone else you have to think about, and you know that as well.
I was going to say, yes.
When you have a partner, you got to think about them, too.
There's these hierarchies in the front office, right? There might be a GM. Well, there's a president of football operations.
Yeah.
There's a lead decision maker in all households.
Absolutely.
And those end up being a little bit clearer and more easy to delineate. 877-794-1973. Our friend Gilbert on the YouTube comments said, great stories. Thank you, Wayne. Those were phenomenal ones. We get a lot more of them as we continue through here, Training Camp Live. We'll wrap things up here on the other side for day number 2. Voice of the Green Bay Packers, Wayne Larrivee's right there. I'm Billy Schmid. This is Training Camp Live on your home for Packers football, Fox Sports Radio, Wisconsin. of Packers training camp. Billy Schmid alongside the voice of the Green Bay Packers, Wayne Larrivee. Thanks for hanging out with us, making us your lunch date here on a beautiful Thursday across the state of Wisconsin, streaming us on YouTube, X, and Facebook, as well as the iHeartRadio app, or listening on 1070 Madison and 920 AM in Milwaukee, Fox Sports Radio, Wisconsin. One of our friends that's been streaming us the last couple of days, friend Matt LePay of the Larrivee and LePay podcast and Badger Radio Network. Enjoying the hat selection here. Now, block somebody blocking football company.
I like that.
It's important, Wayne, that we got to block some people. Not a whole lot of good blocking going on here in shorts and T-shirt. That picks up this weekend. One more day of the appetizer. One more day for us to eat just the little bits and pieces that they walk around during cocktail hour before you get into the meat and potatoes of Packers football in pads coming up on Sunday. You know the excitement is rolling through, but did feel like they got good, clean work here today, albeit quick, in just an hour and a half.
Yeah, hour and a half. But I thought, today's practice was much more productive, at least to my eye.
I would agree,
I'm not a trained eye, folks, but it looked like a lot more productive, a lot more team periods that we saw, which is always fun to be able to kind of dissect. And so, they're just kind of ramping up. That's what this is. And tomorrow, another day in helmets and T-shirts, and then boom. As you mentioned.
Matt LaFleur mentioned it earlier yesterday, I think it was, in one of his press conferences, speaking to just the amount of players they have on the injured list to start camp. It's too many. There's a lot of them. So you have to find a way to slowly build some guys in and be able to, maybe temper down some of those team periods. Today, there were a bunch of them. Yesterday, it was red zone stuff and inside the 10 and 5 yard line, which was, selfishly great for us here on the perch right in front of us. But to see just the different mix and matching of groups, and I think personnel-wise, especially on defense, that's what you're really looking for early on. Who's running with who and who's starting to make a little bit of an impact.
That's exactly right, Bill. And again, but you always have to temper that by saying, okay, they may be trying, these coaches may be trying a combination here of guys just to see what they've got, to see can he, if we need to, can this guy start, that kind of thing. So you have to temper it with that. But no, you're right. And to see where, especially rookies and first-year players, where are they running? Are they with the twos? Are they with the threes? Mm-hmm. Are they with the ones? And so, that kind of thing.
Another good day. We've mentioned him a couple of times. Brandon Cisse was around the football a lot. They tested him in coverage a couple of different times, Jaden Reed and Christian Watson. But Christian Watson and Matthew Golden, back-to-back plays. Jordan Love kind of picking on the rookie, going right at him, and the Packers being able to complete some quick intermediate, out patterns over to Watson, and just a quick stop route where Matthew Golden had the rookie really turned around.
And for those of you who aren't here and you're listening to us, I will say this about Matthew Golden. I don't know what you think, Billy. He looks different to me. He looks in a good way.
With you, yes.
He looks more in command of running the route tree. He seems more decisive in his cuts. I think this kid, maybe I'm reading something into it, but he looks to me like he's no longer a rookie. And I understand he's not physically, but mentally, he's intellectually, he's not a rookie anymore. He's really running like more of a veteran. He has a veteran presence about him he did not have a year ago.
And Christian Watson made a mention of that yesterday. I know the locker room availability gets run through, and everybody has different things to discuss. But Christian Watson was rather complimentary about what he thought Matthew Golden did in the offseason. And being able to keep yourself on the field, a large portion of that, I got to assume, Wayne, is just simply being able to build off of the positives that you have. It's a lot easier said than done to remain, upbeat and positive throughout all of camp, because that's one of the reasons why camp exists, to have you go through the trials and tribulations in a much truncated version of what you probably are going to go through for the next 4 or 5 months.
No doubt. Well, now, Billy, we've come to the stage of practice where they're picking up all the toys. They're not going to let you and I hit the tackling dummies out there after we get off the air. I'm just disappointed that we didn't get a chance to get out there and work against some of those toys.
I was going to say, one of these days,
they should let us play with the toys once in a while.
Thank you. One of these days, they need to get us and allow us to go play with that jugs machine.
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing way too many guys have way too much fun with the jugs machine. And you're right. We've reached the point in practice where not only have most of the security persons cleared out here, most of the on-field equipment staff is clearing out. All the family's gone too. That's when you know you're one of the last ones here. When all of the family is checked off and the last of, the 11 and 12-year-olds have played their own football game that happens in the far end zone, that's when you know you're one of the last stragglers.
Yeah, we're matter of fact, we're so late in getting out of here, folks. We may not be. I think all the gates are locked now. We're not going to be able to get out of here. So we'll just sit here and wait for tomorrow's practice.
I met that beautiful existence yesterday, Wayne, where I walked down to our far left and realized that the far right gate was the one that they kept open for us. So that was a trek and a half, but a good one, and one that we're going to be making throughout training camp. And we'll be back coming up tomorrow. Wayne Larrivee will be out tomorrow. My friend Aaron Nagler will join us coming up tomorrow from Cheesehead TV and Carry the G Radio, the podcast. Final things, Wayne, as we wrap up here, day number 2. Jonathan Gannon, a lot of people want to know a lot of different things about the defense. I think most importantly, it seems like they're being very multiple, but I thought communication was really good here today as well. There's only so much we can, hear. We're not inside of the huddle, but Zaire Franklin coordinating the green dot, he was taking charge throughout early and often.
Yeah, absolutely. Well coordinated. And I really loved what we saw, some of the pressures, disguised pressures that we saw. We saw Coop come around the corner, Edgerrin Cooper. More of that, please.
Yes, more of that, please. Please.
No, I think it was a good, productive day of practice in helmets and shells.
There's only so much that we get until we get into the best part of training camp. That fires up in just a couple of days' time. Sunday will be the first full padded practice that the Green Bay Packers go under. Keyshawn Nixon, again, the headlines, was back out there today. Jagger Burton was not, as he nurses a little bit of a hamstring that flared up very quickly in the process. Did he look okay as far as the hammy? And Nixon said Starlev. Jagger Burton looked good in the little bit that he was talking to different human beings. Nixon looked good, I thought. And
I did too.
He's one that a lot of people have their ire up for, and he is going to be one of the more discussed players during camp. And he gets to live the wild life of a defender during training camp. Every time you make a good play, people here are probably a little disappointed on the stands where we're seeing, because they just want to see touchdowns and first downs.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is a fan-oriented thing here at training camp, no doubt about that. But again, for those of us who report on these things, Bill, and we fall into this every year, we really, we see an interception. Oh, the defense, hey, that's great.
There we go.
But, on the other side, the offense threw a pick. But by the same token, offense completes a big play to Matthew Golden. Hey, that's awesome.
Yes.
But the defense gave up a big play. But all of this gets positive in our brains. And by the end of next week, I'm thinking the Packers are going to the Super Bowl.
I was going to say, Wayne, very soonly enough, our presenting sponsor, Potawatomi Sportsbook, might be seeing me for 20-1 for the Packers to win the Super Bowl because I don't know how they're going to lose a game.
And I'll be right there behind you.
Nobody's losing getting to listen to Wayne Larrivee, voice of the Green Bay Packers, in mid-season form 2 days in. Thank you, Wayne. Always a pleasure.
All right,
we'll talk to you again next week.
There
he is, voice of the Green Bay Packers. I'm Billy Schmid from Packers OT and the Huddle right here on Fox Sports Radio Wisconsin. Back tomorrow with more Training Camp Live, starting up live at 11. It's been Fox Sports Radio Wisconsin's coverage of Packers Training Camp and Training Camp Live.